Excellent. We've got two deputations. The first deputation is from Governor's Bay School, and it's relating to item 7, the Coastal Hazards Adaptation Planning Program. Welcome.
Kia ora koutou, ko river ahau. Who here in this room actually believes climate change is real? Okay, well, for anyone who isn't 100% sure, we are here to tell you that it is real and it is happening and why, and that there's something that we can all do about it.
Kia ora tātou, ko Kate ahau. So what actually is climate change? Climate is different from weather. Climate is over a long period of time, about 30 years, compared to weather, over a short period of time, like day to day. Imagine that our Earth is being covered in a heavy duvet, keeping all the heat in, when all it really needs is a thin, airy blanket. Once the thick duvet is on, it's hard to take off. In other words, climate change is the process of the climate we're used to changing and the planet gradually heating up. This changes our weather and therefore what we and other animals experience. The cause of climate change is the enhanced greenhouse effect and greenhouse gases, especially those that are increased by human behaviour.
The greenhouse effect and greenhouse gases are natural and enable life on Earth. However, human behaviour and the Industrial Revolution has put more greenhouse gases into the atmosphere and the planet is warming up too much. Like Kate said, the blanket is getting too thick. Does anyone know what the 3 main human-enhanced greenhouse gases are in New Zealand? Well, they're carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide.
Some of the things we can do to reduce our impact on the greenhouse effect are talking to and educating people, planting trees, biking or walking instead of using petrol cars, and switching to renewable energy.
Morena, ko seta aho. Today I'm talking about future forecasting. Forecasting is the process of making predictions on the future based on past and present weather data, usually by analysis of trends. In any case, the data must be up to date in order for the forecast to be as accurate as possible. This video is a prediction of the weather forecast in 30 years.
Right. I've got it coming up here. But... Shall I click it again? Double click. I've got it loaded on this screen, but it's not. Yeah. It's sort of doing the loading thing for me.
Oh, let's just
No, it's not casting. So we can skip it if you want.
The video is about the climate and the weather and how they're in 30 or 50 years, and it shows how there's been heat waves everywhere and there's been a lot of flooding and there's a lot of dengue fever going around, and it just
It's a bit depressing.
They're having lows of like low 20s, like 24 degrees is quite a cool day for them. Climate change will look and feel like this. Christchurch will get drier, Wellington will get windier, and the west coast will get wetter. This is really terrible because the west coast is already flooding, Ohinatahi Christchurch is already dry and Wellington is already windy. So really, we need to make a change and make it now. It might seem like everything is bad. Too many trees being cut down, other animals' habitats being threatened, with some even becoming extinct, and drought in Ohinatahi happening more often. We can still make a difference. We will share some of these things later on in our presentation.
This photo shows This photo shows the predictive flooding due to sea level rise in Ōtautahi, Christchurch. This means houses may have to be pushed back, popular tracks closed, and the port will be flooded in under 50 years if we don't act now.
Kia ora koutou, ko Bethany Aho. Does anyone know the difference between adaptation and mitigation when it comes to climate change? Well, adaptation is when you have to adjust due to the impacts of climate change, like raising the floor levels in houses by the coast so large floods won't enter them, or building seawalls or dune restoration. It can also mean not building new houses, where there are big risks of relocating houses away from vulnerable areas. Whereas mitigation is where you actually try to do something to reduce the impacts of climate change and how much you have to adapt, like not using fossil fuel cars, buying local, or coming to talk to your council about what they can do to slow down or even stop climate change.
Tēnā koutou te whānau ko Zoe Aho. Last term, Sian and Mikey came to talk to us about climate change. Mikey told us that the sea levels will rise at least 20 to 40 centimetres. If we continue to do nothing, it could rise 70 centimetres to a metre. The past is the past. We have to think about the future. No matter what, we know there is going to be some change with our sea levels. Through our own behaviours, we can try and reduce this as much as possible, and where we can't, we have to adapt. In order to keep our Earth healthy now and for future generations, first and most importantly, we must listen to everyone. Different people will be in different situations, and share our knowledge and understanding through climate change, what needs to be done and why. Then together we can start looking at the things we could plan for and do now to adapt. Maybe we could build a seawall to keep out the water from beachfront buildings, or raise houses, move roads, or even plant vegetation. What ends up being done will depend on where we live and the best plans for us and the environment.
Kia ora, ko Millie Aho. You may be wondering why we as children and young people have been invited to talk to you today. Well, did you know that under the Children's Convention we have 42 child rights? Some of them include our right to be recognised, listened to, and taken seriously about matters that interest and affect us. And climate change both interests and affects us now and into the future.
At our school, we have already made changes. We are trying to reduce the amount of paper we use. We have surveyed the whole school about how much plastic they have in their lunch, and we started a climate change club where we teach people what climate change is and how to reduce and adapt to it. Some of us has emailed big companies about their plastic packaging, and we're suggesting that if they have to use plastic that is recycled or that can be recycled. You should think about using plastic types like that too. We are also recording and filming our very own climate change song, Fix It Up. We plan to release it early next year, so watch this space.
This all might sound a bit overwhelming, but there is hope, and together we can take action. As you are listening to our hopes and dreams for the next 5 years, feel free to write yours down.
My hope for climate change is that more kids like us will be determined to make small everyday changes, such as a meatless Monday, or even just walk to school to help reduce greenhouse gases.
My hope is that we can improve our environment by reducing single-use plastics.
I hope that the layer of greenhouse gases thins as soon as possible.
Here we go. Okay. My hope is that Banks Peninsula can become predator-free.
I hope that the world will become more aware of the effects and causes of climate change.
I hope that we educate more people, especially kids about climate change and what together we can do to stop it.
So who would like to share their hopes and dreams?
No?
Battery charged travel instead of the internal combustion engine, and that more people get on bikes and e-bikes.
I hope that people will realise that I'm already doing what Councillor Cotter said. But I also hope that my moko will live in a better world than I'm living in right now.
I just hope James stops falling off his bike.
I hope that as we go forward and have discussions about these issues, that we can hear your voice as young people very much in that conversation. So it's great to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you for your hopes and dreams. And to conclude today, we would like to share our song, Fix It Up, that 2 of our talented students wrote about climate change. We are taking action to inform people. What will you do?
Pull out the chairs.
Just leave them, okay.
Once upon a time, our earth was fine, and it orbited harmlessly without a crime. But millions of years ago, humans did evolve. Fast forwarding back quite a lot, we started using cars and aeroplanes, and they pump out greenhouse gases into our atmosphere. So you see, humans made this mess so we can fix it up, fix it up. So you see, humans made this mess so we can fix it up, fix it up. We want our futures, we deserve our lives, 'cause this is the planet we've got and we're destroying it. Walk to school or bike to work, plant some trees and just don't be a jerk. Oh please, help our earth. Cut down on meat, reduce plastic waste, do all these things before it's too late. Oh please, help our earth. So you see, humans make this mess so we can fix it up, fix it up. So you see, humans make this mess so we can fix it up, fix it up. We want our futures, we deserve our lives, 'cause this is the planet we've got and we're destroying it. So you see, humans make this mess so we can fix it up, oh yeah.
Does anyone have any questions?
We're a little bit over time, but if there's one question, that's fine. That was easy for you. Thank you very much. That was excellent. Next up is Helen Broughton, talking to item 8.
Thank you. Helen, I hope you've got a song as well.
I can't see your ukulele.
Mind you, I could have about 3,000 people in fact, this room once people know. Yeah, it'll be packed out. Yeah. So, look, thank you for the opportunity. I've got 10 minutes, have I? Thank you. The implementation plan for the National Policy Statement on Urban Development. There's 2 aspects to this, and I'm not so concerned about your plan, because that's what's got to happen, but I'm concerned about the National Policy Statement on Urban Development. The one aspect of it is to remove all minimum car parking requirements by August 2022, and the second aspect is building heights and densities by August 2022. So they're quite dramatic changes. There's horrendous legislation, I would call it, for Christchurch, where the district plan was done in 2016, and you've also confirmed future direction in our space. The district plan, for those who weren't here at the time, was done through a very formal process, through an independent hearings panel, chaired by Judge Hanson, who's now chair of the hospital board. The panel was similar to the Environment Court, where there could be cross-examination. And it was chaired well by Judge Hanson and had outside people on the panel. Now, in terms of densities, there were two areas which won their case in front of this panel. One was the area where I live, which is the Riccarton Kilmarnock Residents Association, and the other was a large area around Condell Avenue, which I did help with their submissions. And I think the chairman, Ken Davidson, made a submission, Mike Davidson, as well as Jerry Brownlee. So it had strong opposition from local politicians. Now, these areas will be highly upset at this national policy statement once they know. And I suppose I have failed to some extent in effect, telling them at present. I've been tied up with earthquake issues. So what I wish to convey today is I've been speaking to Wellington on this. Dave Faulkner gave me a very good contact there. This is the person who drafted the legislation. He claims there is flexibility. So I've come today to say there is flexibility if a council wishes to exercise it. Now, you couldn't do it across the board, but you might have 3 or 4 areas that you want to have flexibility for, and all the council has, not all the council, but the council has then to document why they've accorded those 3 or 4 areas some discretion. There are, according to the contact in Wellington, qualifying matters and other matters in the legislation, and special character could be considered in other matters. And both areas I've spoken about would actually have that. So council can decide to exclude some areas from the strong direction from central government, and I've been told this is a council call on this, but it must be well justified and in fact recorded. I want to make you aware that there's likely to be strong concerns from the 2 residents' associations who were involved in the hearing panels in 2016 and felt that their area was going to be preserved. But it's, in terms of this legislation, it's not. The other point I've always wanted to come down and talk to you about, and I haven't, is that if you allow intensification around the cities, say in Riccarton area where I live, then it does affect the central city development. You will get apartments and flats around Riccarton, as we have on the southern side, and it does affect your wish to improve the central city in terms of living. If I can turn to car parking, you've recently heard from myself and residents in residential medium density, which is a current zone, of the difficulties in this zone. What happens is that cars are parking on the streets, on the berms, and people have difficulty accessing their apartment. You might have to park your car and walk a block, and that's quite dangerous if you're finishing work late at night and are walking to your apartment. By taking away the requirement that councils have in their district plans to have 1 or 2 car parking spaces on site, it has the potential for other suburbs to experience the difficulties that the medium density zones in Riccarton and other areas are having. It will be across Christchurch. So if we're a garden city, the impact on us is horrendous. So I urge you to try and stop this. I do not believe it is acceptable for central government to impose a blanket order on every city in New Zealand. My understanding is that these standards did not go through an open process of select committees, etc. The Minister, long gone Phil Twyford, took the standards to Cabinet and it was signed off by Cabinet. I believe you should join with other councils to see if there's any way this can be stopped. I suggested a judicial review. Brent Antis, who I saw on the lift coming up, said it's not possible. I've talked to a family member with experience in judicial review. He actually took the council to court a long time ago and won it. I will check on that and send an email round everybody, because if you can do it, I would do it. If you can't, then I think you need to band with other councils and try and stop this through politics, through political pressure. I think the car parking is, just to do it across the whole country, is actual madness. These standards were passed on the 20th of August in an omnibus of legislation and kind of slipped through because I was watching for it, but I even missed it. There was something else that had gone through a select committee on urban development, which was fine. And I had a person emailing me and I said, no, but it did get slipped through. So what I'm asking you to do is to be aware of flexibility for some areas for urban densities, and I'm also asking you to take strong action on car parking, if you can. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. Are there any questions? Tim.
Just call me Tim.
Yeah, no, I said Tim, I just nodded.
It'd be really interesting to define that and how far it can go, because there's no question that national policy statements been written in Wellington based on Auckland, so that's really affecting all of us, and none of us are happy with it. And the complaints that we get aren't specifically about intensification, they're about the quality of intensification and the amount of it. And you mentioned the parking is a really, really crucial situation for us.
Yes.
But your comment with regards from Wellington to you about flexibility,
yes,
I'd be really interested in, because when we come up to flexibility, it seems there is none from Wellington. So what you're being told and what's being directed to us and every other council around New Zealand is I'd say is very, very limited, because it will end up in court.
Yes. I spoke to the person in Wellington I've had contact with, Dave Falconer, who's here today, gave me that contact. He, I think, was drafting the actual legislation. So and if you look at it carefully,
yeah,
and I won't go into that now, there is flexibility there.
Well,
it does talk about those two things, special, let's have a look.
And you are aware that we are already having intensification in character areas. So, like that definition of flexibility, as I go back to my first piece, is it's being written in Wellington, as you've just pointed out by your contact, based on Auckland. So, Helen, it's really, really hard. But you're absolutely right. It's just not good.
Yeah. Thanks, Yanni. Yes, just quickly. Thank you for raising the concerns. I was just wondering if your community board's met with local MPs, or whether you've got a meeting coming up where you could actually raise the issue with the local members of parliament who are responsible for central government legislation.
Look, that's sort of a good idea, and I'll be briefing the two areas that I've been sort of involved with. But certainly we can brief local MPs.
Okay.
I think I still believe, having read the legislation, which I've got here, it's hard copy for me still. There's areas where it is flexible, and I went over this with this man, in fact, Wellington. But I suspect you could only have 4 or 5
Helen, I'll stop you there because you're over time, but thank you very much for your deputation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.